Heading into the bubble, I made a video on the Suns and why I expected them to shock quite a few people and teams in the bubble, because they had looked much better during the regular season and they started the season hot. They then tailed off a bit, but it was really not through fault of their own. Obviously, they were still getting used to a different team, a different coach, a different environment. They had a lot of injuries and they just never pieced together a starting roster. Kelly Oubre got injured towards the end of the season. Aaron Baines was injured. DeAndre Ayton was suspended for 25 games and Ricky Rubio missed games as well, who's a crucial part of their offense, someone who moves the ball well, and we'll talk about him in a bit because he's been a great pickup, and he's just been one of many great pickups that the Suns have had over the last couple of years, over the last year, that has led them to the point where they're finally competitive and Suns fans can finally be excited about not just the future, not just 3 or 4 years from now, which is what most people expected it to take for them to be competitive again, but as soon as next year, they've got the pieces, they've got the ingredients to contend again and to put themselves in the playoff picture. Now, quickly before I get into the video, if you could drop a like right now, that would be much appreciated. Also, sub to the channel because I'm trying to hit, a good amount of subs by the end of the year. I don't know really what to tell you. Anyways, it does help out a lot if you like the video, and it takes quite a while to make these types of videos, so that's all I ask. Cheers. Now, heading into next year, the Western Conference is going to be stacked like always, but you've got young teams on the up like the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and Phoenix. You've got teams like Houston and Utah that people might expect to drop off a bit, but they're still going to be good teams with good players unless Houston make a drastic move, which we don't know. But the Western Conference is going to be at least 12 teams deep of teams looking to compete. But D-Book and the Suns have a genuine chance at making the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And it's not just D-Book that's the reason why. They've got a very solid roster that's starting to form, and it's starting to look like the makeup of a potential team that could push for that 8th seed. And we may as well start with the point guard, because when Ricky Rubio came in on a big contract, I thought it might have been a little bit of an overpay. I thought he'd be a good pickup. I just thought they might have paid a few $1 million a year extra, but some people are claiming it as a terrible pickup, as someone that just doesn't really move the needle, someone that a team like Phoenix, a young team, don't really need someone to come in and just take touches out of D-Book's hands, but it could have been anything further from the truth, because the reality is bringing in veterans like Baines, Rubio, it just adds to the culture and it just instills a winning presence that they haven't had. This organization hasn't won in so long, and you think bringing in players that had been in the playoffs previously for quite a long time and it helped teams win was going to be an issue? Yeah, I don't see how you get to that conclusion. But Rubio is great for the Suns. It might not be seen in the same light, but points and points created are effectively the same thing. So Rubio created 22 points a game just off his passing, and that's only behind LeBron, Trey, and Luka, and ahead of the likes of Simmons, Westbrook, and Harden. And then you match this in with an ability to knock down the 3 ball at a solid rate, and him being pretty shifty at getting to the rim. He's definitely one of the most underrated players in the league, and when you have someone like this alongside a high volume scorer like D-Book, the offense is always going to run smoothly, and it's just no coincidence. After you bring in Rubio, the Suns turned into the team with the highest number of assists per game. Now, this has to do with having fewer isolation players on their team and playmaking at both guard spots. Not just Rubio, Booker as well came along in terms of the playmaking stakes. But when you have one of the best facilitators in the league, it just spreads ball movement all across the floor, and it just means everyone's going to get involved. So it's established. We know what D-Book is. He's a bona fide star at this point in time. He has the potential to go to superstar status. He showed efficiency. He showed playmaking. He does have defensive issues that need to be fixed. At the moment, he's a very subpar defender, and if he can get that defense up to average, and then you mix that in with his offense that I think will even come along more, I wouldn't be surprised to see him average closer to 30 and 6 on good efficiency, which he's shown all throughout his career. He's got a good true shooting percentage because he takes a lot of threes and does so at a good percentage, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up those 30, 28, and 6 kind of numbers. It's just a matter of him becoming a solid defender. He doesn't have to be a great defender. You're not asking him to lock up the other team's best opposition, because the Suns have a few guys that can do that, and we'll talk about that. But if he can become a solid defender, mix that in with his great offense, then he's going to become a top 10 to top 15 player in the league, and he could become even higher. That's not even my favorite part of Phoenix's teams. It's the 3 wings that they have that are versatile on the offensive end of the floor and on the defensive end of the floor, particularly on the defensive end of the floor, when you have 3 guys that can guard multiple positions and knock down shots. Those are very high commodities that the Suns have 3 of, and 3 very good ones at that are only getting better and only got better towards the end of the season. Now let's start with their most recent draft pick, and one that they were ridiculed for picking up, Cam Johnson, who shot nearly 40% from 3. He was injected into the starting lineup in the bubble, and was a big reason they went 8-0, starting at the power forward spot. He was knocking down shots, his defense came along, and he became quite a solid defender. But the reality is Cam Johnson came in as a mature age guy, as someone that wasn't predicted to really have much room for growth, and we're yet to see if he's going to grow much more than someone who can average 10 to 18 points per game, shoot well from the floor, and provide defense, which, again, I think that's good enough in a first round, which, again, I think that provides the value the Suns were looking for in a first round pick anyways, particularly for a team that just needed to solidify that core. And then you have Kelly Oubre, who provides energy, he gets to the rim, provides confidence for his teammates. You know, he's always doing something different when he gets to the rim, when he dunks on people, posterized how many people this year, he had a whole poster package, and he's just got a different look to these other guys like Mikal Bridges and like Cam Johnson. He's more aggressive getting to the rim, but he can also knock down the three ball, and particularly was good at knocking down the three ball in clutch situations. I know it's a weird thing to say, but the Suns did struggle in clutch situations, shooting the ball. Their offense slowed down a bit, and they relied on Booker a bit too much. It wasn't obviously the case in the bubble, but prior to the bubble, during the regular season, that's what held them back a fair bit, and he did that on multiple occasions. Then you mix into this Oubre can guard a few different positions. He's a good defender. He's already had a career year this year, and he's probably even going to get better next year if he stays healthy. Now, I've talked about Oubre and Johnson, who I like, but my favorite and the best defender, and probably the highest upside of the three, no, definitely the highest upside of the three, Mikal Bridges. Like, if you just look at his defense alone, that's enough to suggest he could be a high upside player. That's enough to suggest he could be a Jonathan Isaac type guy, a defensive monster type guy who can also knock down the three ball, which he did towards the end of the season at a higher clip, shooting close to 40% on his last 30 games as he got more minutes, as he got more comfortable in the system. Now, there's a stat that just kind of sums up what Mikal Bridges is. Now, I don't read into steals and blocks a whole lot, but when you look at this list, the only wings since 2000 to accumulate at least 200 steals and 75 blocks in their first 2 seasons. You've got Mikal Bridges, you've got Ben Simmons, you've got LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Andre Kirilenko, Shane Battier, Ron Artest, Paul Pierce. You're just looking at some of the best defenders in the league over the last 20 years, and some guys that you would love in your team, and some guys that are associated with winning, and that's what I think Mikal Bridges will be. But then you also look at it, the only 2 players in this list, out of a list of, a very select list at that played less than 30 minutes a game on average throughout their first 2 seasons, were AK-47 and Mikal Bridges. That's even better company to have one of the best defensive specialists in recent memory. Mikal Bridges is that kind of guy. And then you add into that improved shooting and this defense where he can guard multiple positions. He's got a high defensive IQ, and he started to knock down the three ball. He's going to be a scary sight for opposition's offense, not opposition's defense, which is often what we talk about. Opposition's offense are going to be scared of what Mikal Bridges provides on the defensive end of the floor. And then let's move to the center position, where DeAndre Ayton was very good before his suspension. He's a very underrated defender. People think of him as a slug, someone that can't get out onto the perimeter, which is not true, because when he was guarding players shooting the three ball, they shot under 3% their average three-point percentage, and he was able to get out onto the perimeter and statistically was one of the best bigs at guarding perimeter players alongside Anthony Davis, alongside that kind of company. And then also inside, he's capable of disrupting shots at the rim, he's capable of bodying up against bigs. He's got it all on the defensive end. He's still got a few decision-making issues there, but it's coming along, and I'd say he's a good defender already. Some people think he's a bad defender. I completely disagree with that. I'm not going to say he's a great defender, but he's a good, versatile defender that has potential to be a very good defender if he gets it all together. And then offensively, he's got a game that if he can stretch the floor, that would be huge for them. He showed signs of doing that, but he's still got a few things that he needs to work on. In terms of offensively, the main one being free throw rate, I think. You look at Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Giannis, all the great bigs that score 30 points a game. They get to the line 8 to 10 times a game, and Ayton was only getting to the line 3 times a game, 2.5 times a game, I believe, and that's just not enough. That's going to limit you to scoring about 20 points a game. He needs to push up to that 25 point per game mark, and if he can do that plus his defense, yeah, he's going to be a great player as well to have alongside D-Book and have alongside these up-and-coming 3-and-D wings. And this is why the Suns are such a good prospect going forward. And even going as soon as next year, I think the Suns are going to be a great team. Now, there's a few more things to cover. Free agency. Cam Johnson filled a great need at the 4 during the season, but there's also room to maybe improve that. Maybe have Cam Johnson come off the bench, or maybe have someone else come off the bench. I think Dario Saric is the option just to try and re-sign him. He's proven that he fits into the system. He's a playmaker, which helps them with their ball movement. It's a reason they're one of the best assist teams in the league, because they have more than just two playmakers. They have guys that can all move the ball. He can knock down the three-point shot. He's been around winning teams. Even in Philadelphia, yeah, he was on a winning team, believe it or not. And then you have guys like Jeremy Grant and Christian Wood, who might be higher upside, but might command a higher price tag and will have a bigger market for them. So I think maybe if you can just keep Dario Saric, keep it simple. It was working. There's no real need to change it. I don't see Dario Saric as being a liability by any means. I think he's a good role player. And then another player to re-sign would be Aaron Baines, someone that's linked with a lot of teams, someone that can stretch the floor, play the 4, play the 5, come off the bench, start at the 5, play in playoff minutes, defend bigs. He's just a perfect role player for this Suns team, and he was another player that came in and made a big impact and was a reason they turned their culture around. Another reason they turned their culture around was Monty Williams. They finally have a good coach that they can trust, someone that has the trust of the playing group, someone that's already proven to be great for them, and I think there's everything to suggest Monty Williams is going to be one of the best coaches in the league going forward. Maybe that's a stretch. He's going to be a good coach, and that's what the Suns have lacked for a long time. They've finally got that. Everything's just starting to piece together, and they might need to add another piece, and they have the chance to do that through the draft. I think they might look for an exciting point guard to come off the bench, provide a bit of a spark, because although they have a great backcourt, Rubio is getting older, he does have injury problems. If you could maybe secure that guard position for the future, where there is a lot of guard players, particularly in that 8 to 12 range that they're going to have the 10th spot, and maybe a Kira Lewis, a Tyrese Halliburton, a Cole Anthony, any one of these guys that can come off the bench and to provide a bit of a spark, because they have pretty much all the other bases covered. They don't have stars at every position, but they've got role players at the very least. Basically, Phoenix are in a great position, a better position than they've been in a long time. They've got a good head coach, a good GM, an emerging superstar in Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton has the potential to be a star and all-star player in my opinion. And then they've got Mikal Bridges, who could be one of the best defenders in the league, Kelly Oubre Jr. There's just a lot of reasons to be excited if they can nail the draft pick, which they've done recently. That's just going to help their case pushing towards that 8th to 7th spot, which I expect them to be at rounds. I don't expect them to compete for a championship this year, like I said. Who knows? Maybe they can if they can continue that 8-0 run. Who knows? But if they can make the playoffs for the first time in a long time, that'll just breed more of a winning culture that they're starting to get more of a confidence in that group of players that seem to be brimming of confidence already. But if they can just make the playoff spot this year, then that would be great for them going forward, because I think this year might be the developmental year that they need to take that next step in the next 2 to 3 years where they turn into more of a contender. I'm pretty excited to watch this team play. It's going to be a stacked Western Conference, but they're going to be one of the teams competing for that, and they're going to be one of the teams taking games off the top teams in the West, the top teams in the East. Phoenix aren't going to be a team you can pencil in for a win anymore. Far from that. I expect them to be around 500, higher than 500 would not surprise me at all. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. If you made it to the end of the video and you haven't subbed to the channel yet, do it. Like the video. Catch you next time. Have a good day. Bye.